If you are trying to add fractions, you have to have a common denominator. So if we look at the basic example, 1/2 plus 1/3, you'd have to multiply the first one by 3 on the top and the bottom. That would turn that one into 3/6. This other one, you would have to multiply the top and the bottom by 2, and that would turn that one into 2/6. And then you could add the tops to get 5/6. What I want you to get from this is the second fraction had a factor of 3, so the first fraction needed a factor of 3. The first fraction had a factor of 2, so the second fraction needed a factor of 2. You have to make the factors in the denominators match. And whenever you stick a factor into the denominator of one fraction, you have to also put that in the numerator of that same fraction. Okay, do you see a problem with example A? Do you see how 3 minus x is backwards? Anytime you see an expression in a denominator that's backwards, I want you to rearrange it. This is negative x plus 3. And then do you remember what we did with the expressions when it's a negative x? Factor a negative 1 out of there. So this is really negative 1 times x minus 3. Okay, typically I start these problems by rewriting. When you rewrite it, factor anything that can be factored, and then space it out so you have room to work. So our first fraction is 4x over, we can't factor x minus 3 anymore, so it's a factor of x minus 3. The other thing that I don't really like about this problem is that it is subtraction. When you're subtracting fractions, it's really easy to lose a negative. So I want you to change it. Instead of subtracting, I want you to add the opposite. So you're going to stick that negative up in the numerator of the next term. So this is, I'm going to give myself some space, negative 6 over negative 1 times x minus 3. Typically, we want to get the denominators to match, but this is kind of a special case. The only thing that doesn't match here is the negative. But take a look at that fraction in particular. Do you see how there's also a negative on the top? The negative on the top is going to cancel the negative on the bottom, so this is actually going to be positive 6, and you can completely ignore that 1 on the bottom. Okay, now do the denominators match. If the denominators match, then that is what your denominator is. And you can combine the tops. So you have 4x and 6. Our new numerator is 4x plus 6. Example 2 doesn't involve any factoring. If you look at these denominators, they can't be factored. So I'm going to space this out. We've got 6 over x minus 3. And we've got that subtraction. We don't like subtraction. We change that to plus a negative 2 over x plus 2. Okay, now we need to play the matchy game. The first fraction has x minus 3. So this other one needs x minus 3. And if we put that in on the bottom, we have to also put that in on the top. The second fraction has x plus 2, so what does the first fraction need? X plus 2 on the bottom and on the top. The order of the factors doesn't matter. What matters is that the two fractions have the same factors in them. They have to have common denominators. So both of them have x minus 3, both of them have x plus 2. So your denominator is x minus 3, x plus 2, or x plus 2, x minus 3. The order doesn't matter. But now that we have a common denominator, we can combine the top. What do you think we need to do with this 6? We need to distribute, so 6x plus 12. And what should we do with that negative 2? Distribute, negative 2x plus 6. And then, any ideas? Combine like terms. We've got 4x plus 18 on the top, and our denominator is still x minus 3, x plus 2. In example 3, we have a little bit more work to do. When we go to space this out, we've got x squared minus 9. We need to factor that. How do we factor x squared minus 9? Difference of 2 squares. X plus 3, x minus 3. Once again, we have this subtraction. Change that to plus a negative in front of the 5. So we have plus negative 5 over, and we need to factor this trinomial. When you factor trinomials, you're looking for two numbers that multiply to give you 3 and add up to negative 4. Since we're adding up to a negative but multiplying to a positive, they must both be negative, so negative 1 and negative 3. X minus 1, x minus 3. If you feel like all of this is super easy except for the factoring, if you feel like factoring is the thing that's holding you back, please come see me. I will work with you. We'll figure out what it is about factoring that's stumping you, figure out how to move past that, because I really don't want factoring to be the reason that you aren't successful with this. That's the part that we should be good at by now. So please let me know if you need help with the factoring aspect of this. Okay, once you have everything factored, now we play the matchy-matchy game. I notice that they both already have x minus 3, so that part's done. The first one has x plus 3, so the second one needs x plus 3. What else do we need to do? The x minus 1. Okay, and if you like to use colors, feel free to use highlighters or colored pencils. It is kind of nice if you use colors, because then you can look through here and see, okay, both denominators have a green, both of them have a yellow, both of them have a blue. We now have common denominators, and that denominator is x plus 3, x minus 3, x minus 1. Again, the order of those factors does not matter. On the top, we need to distribute and combine. 3x times x is 3x squared. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. Negative 5 times 3 is negative 15. Do you notice we used that negative for both of those terms? If we had left this as subtraction, it would be really easy to forget about that negative, and then you'd lose a negative and have a wrong answer. So the step that we did here, where we changed it to plus a negative, that saves you from losing a negative and getting something terribly wrong. So our common denominator is x plus 3, x minus 3, x minus 1. And if we combine our like terms, we've got 3x squared minus 8x minus 15. Example 4 looks more difficult because it's 3 fractions, but I'll tell you right now it's really not any more difficult. X minus 2, we can't factor anymore, so that's just x minus 2. What do I do with this subtraction? Make it plus a negative 2 over. We can't factor x plus 2 anymore. Finally, there's addition between two fractions. We've got x plus 3 on the top. I'm going to put parentheses around that just in case we have to multiply something up there. X squared minus 4. How do we factor that? X plus 2x minus 2. Once you get it factored, you're probably going to see, oh, hey, this doesn't really look all that difficult because all there is here is x plus 2's and x minus 2's. So the third fraction has x plus 2. The middle fraction has x plus 2. The first fraction does not. So it needs x plus 2. The first fraction has x plus 2. The last one has x plus 2. Did I say plus? Sorry. They both have x minus 2. The green, both the first and the third have x minus 2. The middle one needs the x minus 2. And I really like using colors because now I can look at my three fractions and say they all have a yellow in the bottom, they all have a green in the bottom, so they all match. And our denominator is x plus 2, x minus 2. Distribute. Distribute. And there's nothing that we have to distribute that x plus 3 with, so plus x plus 3. And then what do you suppose the last step is? Combine like terms. 3x, negative 2x, and x, I believe that's 2x. And 6, 4, and 3 is 13. 2x plus 13 over x plus 2, x minus 2. And there's your assignment.